Ashen One, beware the chosen undead.
Greetings, Internet, and welcome to another mildly interesting episode of Real Debate. As always, I'm Kyle, and joining me this week we have Nate.
Hello.
And no one else because everyone else is asleep, apparently.
Or sick, which has been the last 2 weeks for us.
Still sick. Like, seriously, we've been a little late on uploading because, well, everyone was sick one week and couldn't go more than a couple of seconds without coughing. And then the next week, no one had a voice, so we couldn't record anything. And now people are still sick and or have no voice. So this is what we got.
I'm still feeling it a little. So, what movie are we doing this week?
We are talking about Army of Darkness because it is October.
And it is Spook Month, and yeah. And so we like to do things very silly, so...
This is a really good movie. Those who know me know that I love cheesy movies. And this is cheesy and fun.
There's so many one-liners in it that are just repeated and part of our culture nowadays for idioms and whatnot. Hail to the king, this is my boomstick, things like that.
Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun.
So, I mean, the other title for this we could do is Ash versus Ash for the title, because that's very. If you haven't seen the movie, spoilers ahead. By the way,
that's implied with any movie we talk about.
Yeah, but these movies are fantastic and silly.
If you haven't seen this and you know me, what the hell is wrong with you and what the hell is wrong with me? If you haven't seen this and you don't know me, why are you watching this?
Yeah, so there's not much to rate about this, and so we're going to take a lot of the time to just talk about siege warfare and the time period, because we see a Chemistry 101 book in the back of Ash's car, and he shows it to the wise men or wizards of the time period, and they help create gunpowder, which is pretty key to the movie as well.
And this is definitely a movie I wish we had Dan for, because he knows this time period quite well.
Yeah. I was doing some research beforehand, and just looking at the Mongols and the Song Dynasty and a lot of, pre-gunpowder / just siege warfare in that time period, after the Crusades and whatnot.
I too did research, and probably more than you got around to doing. And I will say that actual battles at a siege, very rare. For the most part, it was camp outside, and either they surrender or you run away because their reinforcements showed up, or you have to retreat because winter came. Weather seriously does play a huge factor in warfare.
And we see it with a lot of these sieges. We can see as 60 men being able to defend off an army with the defenses that they have and using it correctly. And that's why, actual attacks against the fort itself were very uncommon.
I will say, 60 men, a lot for defending.
Mm-hmm.
There have been several cases of 5 men defending a castle under siege. Admittedly, they were sneaking reinforcements in, but for a majority of the siege, 5 guys.
5 guys burgers.
Because when you engineer a castle, you're building kill zones.
Yeah.
If you haven't taken the time to build a kill zone, then you've built an 18th century castle. And those were all for show.
And we actually see some of the tactics in this that are being used. The soldiers on the ramparts dropping boulders onto the people attacking, the skeletons.
I mean, they were oversized, but, that's more a movie thing. Because you only need a rock that's, 2, maybe 3 pounds. That's enough to, even if the man is wearing a helmet, that's enough for, at the very least, a concussion.
And in this case, we know that bludgeoning damage does extra damage against undead.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so we see use of arrows being or having gunpowder attached to have mini TNT, pretty much explosives to help wipe out the larger portions of the army, and they hold off. Ash holds off firing the arrows until they're well within range and well grouped up as well, which is pretty solid tactic.
Uh, I'm normally against tying anything to an arrow, except for maybe a message, and even then, you've got better ways of delivering a message. But this really works in the movie because it was going off like, as you said, TNT. It was stupid, ridiculous, and over the top. But every arrow was blowing up at least a shield and several skeletons each, which is just hilarious.
Mm-hmm. And they were focusing firing on the siege equipment as well until the battering ram actually comes in and breaks down the wall, or I guess drawbridge or
Drawbridge, which was not properly defended, but whatever. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief with skeleton army marching at a castle.
Of all the things that we're gonna suspend our disbelief for, it's that's the thing, because it's an 80-minute movie and it's a cult classic. It's not meant to get into that. It's meant to be over the top and silly, and that they actually get in some of the good tactics is pretty impressive. So yeah, one of the things that we're the military was kind of waiting for, I guess the humans, was the reinforcements that they weren't sure were going to come at all. With was it Henry the Red?
Henry something, I think. I'm terrible with names at the best of times. Most of you know this because I don't address you by name.
We address you as the internets. And that's something that in siege warfare was very common, is to wait for sallies of enemy force, or of your forces, to come and attack the sieging side while they're setting up their defenses, because then they're in a position of weakness and not prepared for this.
Another thing that I should point out is what's it? Henry the Lionheart? Is that his name? I want to say it's Henry the Lionheart. Dan is somewhere crying.
Mm-hmm.
No, that would imply he had emotions. But despite being renowned for warfare and the Crusades and all that stuff, he only partook in 3-4 battles.
Mm-hmm.
He understood that you siege a place, you don't fight.
Yeah. Well, and we see a lot of the Mongols, and their tactics with this is they fought outside of the fences and then harried ground armies and attacked them while they were starving out. So they took the land ahead of time, and then kept a minor force there and just dealt with the forces around while starving them out. And that is typical what we see in sieges and how they resolve, because if not, then it's a very bloody, and it costs a lot of lives. And that's one of the things that we see work well for the skeletons in this, is there's 3 things that you need in order to lead an army. That is, they need to be led, they need to be bred, they need to be fed. So they need to be led, they need to have a leader and have clear goals. They need to be bred in that they need to have a reason to be fighting. They need to, have the morale and whatnot. And the skeletons don't have this at all. It's just, we're going for the book, and they're following a central leader. And skeletons don't really need to be fed. So that's where we see, 2 of these. We see these 2 important factors being taken out and working well for them, because humans are used to fighting humans, and so morale, I guess it kind of played a factor in at the end when they killed the Ashen One. Or is he chosen
No, he was. You would call him chosen undead, because Ashen One would be Ash.
Yeah.
Whose full name is Ashley. That was revealed in season 2 of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
His real name is Ashley.
Yeah.
His dad's an asshole.
An ashhole.
Another great thing that, this is just me, but putting the helicopter blades basically onto the front of the car and just driving at skeletons. Yeah, I guess that only really works against skeletons, but when your weapon works against a particular foe, I guess can you really criticize it because, yeah, that would be irritating at worst to humans, but when it's sending skeletons flying, that's great.
I mean, it would have just been great if they had it at the breach and then just parked it there in front and had the skeletons run into it.
So, something that I have to criticize this movie for is when they breached the uh, gate, they basically were coming in. And both of the I don't know what this part of the castle is called, but both the wooden parts should be down because that one allows archers to just be firing straight into the enemies that are coming in, and this allows for the murder holes above to start dropping rocks and, on rare occasion, drop boiling liquids, which is a serious tactical problem if it's over the wall, and it's all right if it's through those very dedicated murder holes.
And we kind of see that they get to that point when they're dropping rocks. But again, this is an 80-minute movie.
I do have to say, though, seriously, they don't do boiling liquids over onto the enemy. It's extremely inefficient, especially if it's over the castle walls onto the enemy, because you have to, one, heat up the liquid, two, wait for it to boil, which if you're getting a large pot like that, it takes a very long time, and three, you're taking how many men that could just be chucking rocks the whole time to lift said cauldron carefully, tilt it over carefully, and then hope that the enemy is lined up with it correctly.
And plus, what is scalding liquid's going to do? Scald off the skin of the skeletons?
I mean, I get doing some sort of oil through a murder hole because that's a all right application for it, but never over the edge.
Like, if you have like pitch or something that can act like, they can light it on fire and create another zone that the enemies can't go through for a period of time. So
you get the point, though. It's if you're already at that stage, it's way too late.
rocks work way better.
Rocks are a far better option, quicker.
Plus, you can create a natural obstacle through that as well, and not damage yourself through the fires that may spread. But yeah, normally we'll see in a siege is we'll see ramparts being created in trenches, so then out of range, and then they'll slowly dig up parallel to the walls, so then they can slowly surround the fortress. And we don't really see that at all in this. I mean, it's understandable because it's not like they had.
The movie will just be 3 months of them camping outside.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot happens. The end.
The people all starve out. Yeah, or we can see sapping occur where they dig under, and maybe the skeletons could have gone to the pit that we saw earlier and unleashed the blood fountain to its full potential. Because there were some weird creatures in that pit. You could say they were ne'er-dwellers.
God damn it, Nate.
Well, I mean, there's water down there, and they got to get their water from somewhere.
Well.
And we see Ash fall into it because he could not see that well. That's what I'm here for. Is bad jokes.
So, also, I gotta give massive props to just showing the skeletons playing bone or using bones as
A flute.
flutes. That's just so my jam.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is my jam.
Or the ones playing the bagpipes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I love that type of imagery.
They're woodwind instruments.
Bone wind instruments.
We're just gonna get some long-winded jokes coming along. Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of connections between this and Helm's Deep. I know this is a long stretch, but
Well, seeing as how this movie came out, at least 12 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is going to be a long stretch. What you got?
All right, so I mean, we see a lot of one-liners from the protagonists and antagonists, which is actually really cool to see. You know, Bruce Campbell being able to make jokes on both sides.
I don't know who played Evil Him in the makeup, so
I would assume that it was Ash or Bruce Campbell.
I don't know.
But I mean, at the epilogue of it, when he's back in his own time, we see him throw a shotgun up and then ride along on a what is it, push?
Some sort of trolley.
Yeah, and you know, it's just like it's just like Legolas when he rode down on the shield, kind of.
Another thing I do appreciate with this movie is Ash was using a spear for a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
The spear is the most underrated weapon.
Well, we see him using tripping tactics as well against the skeletons.
Yes. And spear beats sword in a majority of situations and a majority of... I guess just a majority of situations. But point is, long, sharp objects better than short objects.
Know your weapon triangle, people.
It's not even the weapon triangle. It's just know when to use the spear. Also known as almost always use the spear. Even one-on-one, you've got a greater advantage. Greatest reason to use the spear in a one-on-one fight is if you aren't trained with any weapons, the spear is the easiest one to pick up and use.
Yeah. And we see a
Yeah, you hit on a keynote though. Training.
Yeah, we see a 30-second montage where they're Mulaning it up and learning how to use the spears, and Ash is teaching the people how to use it. Like, I was starting to sing along to it. Be a man.
All right, Nate. What's your big takeaway from this movie?
That the shotgun beats sword any day.
Yes.
And hey, long live the king.
I guess my takeaway from this movie is what I've always insisted: rocks. Seriously, just keep throwing rocks.
I mean, if you see Dwayne Johnson on the rampart, throw him at a person. You'll see how effective he can Samoan drop somebody.
Never toss the rock. I don't know what I was going with there.
Well, I mean, you brought up earlier that he was using the spear, and that is Roman Reigns' finisher as well. So,
no, his finisher is going to be cancer.
Oh, too soon.
That is too soon. Roman Reigns, I do appreciate what you've done, even though I think that you're overpushed and have no personality.
It is. You're gonna beat this man. I know you're never gonna listen to this, but we love you. We love hating you.
I'll agree that I love hating you. But that's why you're the character and not the man.
We really hope that it'll work out for you.
Anyways, what do you think? Did we get way too off track with this? Are we blithering idiots? Did we forget something? Let us know in the comments. Or don't. I'm not your mother.
By God, that man is broken in half!
March of the skeletons, march of the living.